Hi guys, good morning. So guys, if you want to say a good morning, why don't you drop a text in the chat? And this will also start for you, right? A chain where you can ask the questions, right? Because this session is for you, right? We are here to have a conversation, right? We are not here to kind of tell you what we know. We are here to get to your questions and what we think may be your questions. We're just gonna go through those slides, right? So how this session is going to run is I'm going to post a few questions to Colonel Binoj Koshi, right? And I will ask him a few questions on what he thinks about his implementation journey in before, because very few organizations till now have that information, have that knowledge of practical implementation. And Binoj Koshi sir has been part of one of them where he kind of helped it out, and then probably he can share with us, right, some information about how that implementation is going to happen, right? So I'm going to also do a short introduction for sir, right? Once we kind of get to those third slides. But what I want all of you to do is I want all of you to kind of write in chat a good morning, and then I'm going to start this session. So can you all go to the chat and write good morning? That's it, right? I know it's not tough. Come on, guys. Yeah. Good morning. Good morning, guys. Come on. Come on, guys. Good morning. Yeah. Let's do it 50 and then we'll start. Yeah, I'm just waiting for all of you. Okay. Okay. Hi, Rohit. Good to see you back. Okay. We are 57 and we are 63 now in total. And I know usually people will join, will become 100 very soon. So that kind of becomes a major trend at Tsaaro. But yeah. So, guys, we're going to start the session then. So, today we are here for one of the technical discussions that we keep coming back to, right, at Tsaaro webinars, right? Thanks a ton for joining us, right? It kind of makes us feel better to see that we know something that we can share, right? And that is exactly why we keep organizing so many of them, right? So it's great to see that people coming back to the sessions, looking at the same names again and again, kind of gives us more confidence that whatever we are trying to tell, people can understand it, or it kind of relates to the real time world, right? And that is something that we don't see normally, and that is exactly why we kind of do these sessions, and that is why exactly why we have speakers such as Binoj Koshi sir joining us today. So the session today will be on a journey of ISO 27701 implementation. Anybody who's a privacy professional knows that there are a few ways to kind of give more assurance to an organization, right, about privacy. And one of the biggest ones is ISO 27701, right, isn't it? So we want to talk a lot about what it is all about, right? How do we go about it, right? If you have, again, guys, let me just kind of clarify. If you have questions, drop them in the chat box. I will ask those questions. I will filter out those right questions for sir to answer, right? But if you want a one-on-one discussion in questions, you will still have that option in the Q&A session in the last 10-15 minutes that we will give all of you too. So if you have a question which is not being covered, write it down with you, ask it in the last Q&A session that you will get, right? Okay. So a bit about Tsaaro. Tsaaro is a privacy consulting company. We are a data protection as a service provider, and obviously we have DR Academy where we kind of do a lot of certifications, which are IAPP, Tsaaro, and PECB for ISO lead auditors, right? But talking about Tsaaro today. So Tsaaro, what we do is we kind of do consulting, right? We kind of do privacy implementations, right? That's exactly where we have learned all of this, and then we kind of, after learning and practically implementing, we came back and we have started sharing knowledge with all of you, right? Okay. So we'll gonna move to the speaker section. So a bit about me. I am the co-founder of this company. I'm also a fellow in information privacy. I have CIPT, CIPPE, and I'm still preparing for CIPM. So pardon me, guys. But you will see that soon, right? I'm one of the youngest FIPs in the world, and I also kind of part of the IAPP advisory boards in the US for the CIPT exam development board somehow, right? Because I'm also CIPT. So that is a bit about me. I'm a privacy consultant with 4.5 years of experience. Uh, I know that's not a lot, but GDPR is kind of GDPR and my age kind of in terms of kind of equalizes. Like it kind of helps me grow in the same field. So I would like to kind of also introduce our guest speaker today. And believe me, I think I have been uh, talking to a lot of people about privacy implementations, and Binod Koshi sir kind of came already has implemented, right? And I know people are talking about it in the market, but very few people have actually implemented these technical things, right? When somebody's already an ISO 27701 certified organization, right? And that kind of becomes a big deal for us, and that kind of made me inclined to kind of request him to join us, right? So Mr. Colonel Binod Koshi is ADG in UIDAI, and he also takes care of a lot of privacy and data protection over there. So we kind of requested him a lot to join us, and somehow he gave us time. So thanks a ton, sir, for joining us, right, and letting us have you here. So, sir, would you like to also take a short introduction for our general audience? And also, sir, would you like to take a minute and tell us? And I know it's hot, the market is hot with the Indian Privacy Bill. So, I would also request you to kind of just take that 1 minute, please, for everyone and speak about that. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Akshay, for the event, and thanks for inviting me. Yet, I would say I'm still a student of the Tsaaro. Hence, I would like to speak from that perspective. Otherwise, I'm a forensics professional. I'm a gold medalist from the National Forensic Science University, Gandhinagar, and then I have an LLM and an LLB. And my LLM is primarily on constitutional law with specifics to privacy. My projects have been more on privacy. Uh, Unfortunately, I'm now with the UIDAI. Though I've seen a partial journey of the ISO 27001 implementation, which I took over from my predecessor. Yet, once I came into this organization, I realized the significance of privacy. In fact, I have an army background, and I have an MA in human rights and an MPhil in psychology. So that probably all these combinations would look apt to actually speak to you. Okay, coming back to the aspect of privacy. The market is really, as Akash was telling, it's really hot. With the privacy bill coming in, which was placed, you're aware, Mr. Chaudhary, the JPC head chairman, has asked for an extension because of the refinement that is essential for an implementation in one of the world's largest democracy with 1.3 billion people being affected. Yet, I would say privacy is not new to the Indian history. If you see the word Zena, Zenana, which comes from a Bengali origin, which talks about in the old Indian subcontinent household, where the women had a private place to stay within their house, within the village. So that is how we belong to such a huge culture. In fact, if you read the Hitopanishads, that is the Dharma Shastras which we have, there is a lot of talk on privacy with respect to worship, with respect to family, with respect to sex in the Indian perspective. So if you go and read, so it is not new to as far as India is concerned. It is just that the Westerners started making a lot of noise, so that noise came into India. If you read Article 21 of the Constitution, it's apt and very clear that privacy is a fundamental right. Though there are arguments against that it is not absolute in nature, yet it has got its own positioning as far as privacy is concerned in terms of the act. In fact, if you ask me from the perspective of from law, the IT Act also provided a lot of provisions to have privacy and data protection within it inherently. If you see the way Shreya Singhal case in which 60CA was abrogated in the IT Act, that was primarily to uphold the provisions of privacy. And when the Aadhaar Act of 2016 came in, the Supreme Court first took out and struck away Article 57, the section 57 of that particular provisions, in which it provided more powers to the residents or the citizens in terms of privacy. The other aspect is, if you see the Aadhaar per se, the hearing of Puttasamy versus Union of India in the Supreme Court actually gave the root cause to make a bill for India, that is the PDPP bill, which will be coming in. So with this as the prelude, I'll hand you back to Akash for that matter, and then he can probably take us forward with this as the background.
Right, sir. So thank you for that information. I know everybody who has joined us kind of is thinking about the same issue on their minds, and so as to what to do, right? What is next? What is upcoming in India? Because whenever that bill comes, it will be a flood to the Indian context, because we don't have, and first of all, we don't have enough people, and second of all, we don't have enough implementation knowledge. Because, but again, as you have rightly mentioned out, that that concept of privacy, I think that Western concept of privacy coming to Indian context may not be the only concept that we have. We already have our own concepts culturally, right? Which we are forgetting, and we are thinking that, hey, this is coming from the West, but it's coming from us, right? It's with us. Yeah, and I think that's a very fair point. That I think let's have a conversation about this again,
Yeah.
and we should publish
I
something about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I like to reiterate one by virtue of being an army person roaming around the complete countryside. If you go to Rajasthan and Gujarat, you have a concept of Rani Ki Vav. That is a place, a bathing place, which is secluded only for women. And if you visit these places, you will realize the layer of security that is provided for women bathing in a village or in a particular, and these vows are across Gujarat and Rajasthan, if one would go and see, and it and it is at even at the depth of that well is so huge that even if you were to say a kilometer away, you would not see. That is how it is. And then if you travel to the Kashmir, even the Maharaja Ranjit Singh's time, you would see what is known as the Draupadi Kund. At places, you would see places where there were bathings for their Draupadi. So privacy as an aspect in Indian culture did exist even before what the Westerners thought about.
Right, sir. And sir, I just want to tell you something very interesting today. So we have touched 100 people, and I know we are not able to let more people in because of our, and this has been the highest we have seen yet. So yeah, I think that's something that as a webinar that we are moving on. So guys,
Yeah.
I'm gonna talk about a few key terminologies, and then I think we're gonna start the session, and then we can make some context, right? Okay. So PII is personal information. Any information that can be used to reach back to you is PII, right? Your name, phone number, right? Anything that can be used to kind of reach back to you. Okay. PIMS, right? PIMS kind of came out, and because we are talking about PIMS, because we should already be knowing something about ISMS. And I hope so that is the context, because ISO 27701 will build upon ISO 27001, and that is exactly where ISMS kind of builds out the information security controls in the company. And then above ISMS, we kind of build the PIMS, right? The Privacy Information Management System, right? That we are going to obviously talk about. PII principle, uh, data subject, right? Also known data subject. People who kind of are unable to relate, it's a data subject. It's as simple as that. PII controller is PII controller, or in Indian context, it's known as data fiduciary, and PII processor is PII processor. It's similar to data processor, and a PIA is obviously the beautiful part of our work that we do every day. That is the privacy impact assessment, also sometimes known as data protection impact assessment. But for me, it is the same. I know there's a huge debate among privacy professionals as to what it is, and I know some Europeans kind of keep fighting about it, but I'm just doing the same thing, and I kind of feel that end of day, the goal of every privacy work is singular, right? That is to decrease the risk of privacy, right? And we are kind of doing it when we are building ROPA, when we were doing PIA, when we're making PIMS. So yeah, so that's something that we should keep in mind. And I am going on to the next slide.
Yeah.
So guys, I
Let
have a question for you.
uh,
Yes, sir.
yeah, Akash, just to put people into perspective, just go back to the previous slide.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. There is a salient difference between PII and personal data. In fact, the GDPR is explicit on the fact. Yet in the industry, there's a lot of confusion between what is PII, that is personally identifiable information, and personal information or personal data. So this one has to be very particular in implementation, that you need to draw a distinct line, and only GDPR gives that particular distinguishing. In fact, there is no other document. In fact, if you look at the NIST or the NISA documents, or the other, say the Canadian privacy bill, there is no distinguishing per se, but however there is a distinguish of this particular of PIA versus a personal data. Yeah. Okay.
Yep. And I think kind of PII, I just want to add on to this. PII is a terminology in the US. It's most used because HIPAA came in and we kind of started using PII. But GDPR kind of, we talk more about personal data. So basically, if you see PII or personal data, as Sir has said, kind of for a privacy professional, it kind of ends up to a very similar thing. But okay, I have a question for all of you. So guys, you all have to go to menti.com. Just type www.menti.com and then type code 85651123. Right, guys? Type the code 85651123 and choose, do you know about ISO 27701 or no, or have you heard about it vaguely, right? Can you do that? And this will help us setting context to what to tell you on how depth we can go in the session. Okay, two people have agreed that they know vaguely about it, and believe me, we all, privacy is a field where we all know vaguely. Still, we are all discovering it, guys, right? Come on, we need some yeses here. Come on. Okay, two. Okay, there's your yes. Okay, perfect. Three yeses, four yeses. Come on. So we have 100 people. So we will wait till 50 people have answered this. So guys, you have to go to menti.com and you have to type the code 85651123. It's simple. It's simple. You can go on your mobile, you can use your laptop, right? Just type menti.com, guys. I know you have internet because you have joined the session. So we have 30 people already. Okay, that's awesome. So okay, so we'll just wait for more people to vote this, and then okay. So I think it's kind of nice to see that a large part of the crowd knows about it, and we really appreciate people who have context joining our sessions, because sessions at Tsaaro webinars are technical, right? We get into the depths and we are not trying to make it generic. We are getting into depths of the problems that are there in the privacy world. So yeah, I think probably this may be a learning for all of you, that if you are joining Tsaaro sessions, my request to you is to kind of do some background, because so that you can ask us technical questions, right? Because these are not generic webinars. We will get into technical details. So guys, whoever has technical questions, as technical as you can be, please ask us and we will try to respond to you, right? Okay, so we will take that most of the no yes and some people know, and then vaguely. So okay, I think let's start. Let's start with some knowledge sharing here. So, sir, my question number one to you is: if let's say we have to brief somebody about what is ISO 27701, then what is your context? What is your view about it?
Okay. Right. Very interesting question, and there is a lot of myth on this particular aspect. The ISO 27701 is as new as probably 2016 odd, and then it came in as a BS standard, and then it probably became an ISO 27701 standard. Yet, ISO 27701 is primarily to do with privacy. Yet, in an organization, and it is not an individual certification that one can take of ISO 27701, it is an organizational certification and is a framework, primarily for the fact that it is a fallout of ISO 27001. ISO 27001 is actually the ISMS standard, or the Information Security Management System. If an organization is not certified under ISO 27001, one cannot become an ISO 27701 organization. So that is the first part of it. In fact, if you see the document of ISO 27701, it is a huge dominion and it's a huge document, much larger than the 27001. But if the organization is not information security certified, it cannot be a privacy certified organization. And remember, ISO 27701 is only a guideline. You may have a doubt when you have GDPR, why do you require 27701? Or when you have the PDPP of India, why do you require the 27701? Remember, these regulations that come out are pertinent or particular to a particular infra or to a particular country. For example, GDPR is EU, and you have the GDPR UK. And then you have the PDPP bill or the CPP, which is Canadian oriented, or we have the Singapore privacy bill. Yet, if an organization has to make a framework, then it has to follow the ISO or the international standards, which is the ISO standard, which is there. Yeah. So that's why it is called the PIMS, or the Privacy Information Management System. Yeah, I hope I'm clear on these.
All right, sir. And okay, so there was a question in between. I think we missed it, but this question kind of is a very like a very basic question. So I just want to cover this also. So so the question was, does PII include both personal data and sensitive personal data, or is there a different terminology for sensitive personal data? Is a question.
The interpretation of it is based on the organization. For example, an Aadhaar number, because I'm from Aadhaar, is an Aadhaar number a PII? Yes. But insofar as the social security number of US is concerned, the first 4 digit is not a PII. Yet the full number is a PII. So in the Indian context, the complete 12-digit Aadhaar is a PII. Yet in the US social security, the first 4 digit is not a PII, because that is a designator. So in terms of distinguishing between a personal data and PII, it all depends upon what regulatory organization you are binding upon.
Right. Right. And I think sensitive PI kind of becomes the culturally sensitive data for the world. So in whichever country you are, guys, whatever is culturally sensitive to you, it can be sexual orientation, it can be religious orientation, whatever you think is sensitive culturally becomes the sensitive data, and that is the basic that you should remember, and you will solve the problems automatically. Okay, question number 2, directly to you, sir. Like a basic question: why do you think, right, a standard like ISO, because there's so many standards, right? Every country has their own, right? Every company kind of comes up with their own standards, but why would somebody as big as ISO came out with ISO 27701 standard? Why is it that it became a global standard so quickly in last few years?
Okay. Again, I would like to reiterate here that do not distinguish between a privacy standard that is exclusively enacted for a particular state or particular organization or particular continent, and do not confuse the one with the ISO standard. The ISO standards are primarily a framework, a guideline, what shall I say? It is a set of instructions for implementation of a universal subset. Yet, let us say, can I get GDPR certified? No. You have to be certified under ISO 27001. Yet GDPR is a compliance perspective. It's a compliance part of it. That is. Now, for example, 27,000, if you read under the 27,000 series, if you read ISO 27018, it pertains to PII on private cloud. So this is a standard that has been enacted for the PII on private cloud. Yet to bring in as a privacy within the organization, this ISO 27701 is important.
All right. We will move on, and I think people are already having technical questions, and I think a lot of people have already asked this me in chat, but I just want to know your perspective quickly. So guys, again, let's go quickly to Menti, and then let's discuss about this, because this will become the biggest question of the day. So we all have to go to, again, menti.com, 85651123. Is ISO 27701 part of ISO 27001, or this is an independent thing and has no relation to ISO 27001? Do you think they don't have relation at all, or is it an extension, or is it something new altogether? What do you think, guys? And I will wait for 50 people to vote, and then I'm gonna shift next. So I'm just waiting for all of you to kind of see if you're voting. Okay, we are 30. So guys, come on, guys. It's just simple. Just go to menti.com, use the code 85651123, and we are good to go. Okay, so we have 40 people. Okay, so agreed. So a lot of people have kind of are towards inclining towards that it is an extension, and obviously a lot of people think that it is a part of ISO 27701. So okay. So again, so the question is again coming to you, right? And a lot of people have already asked this question already to me on the chat. So I wanna get your perspective, saying, do you think that ISO 27001 and 27701 are different, or are they part of each other, or there is something that is kind of an extension to the other? What is your take on this?
Now, the ISO 27000 series is to do with information security. So one relates to ISMS, two relates to I think it is to do with
The implementation of ISO.
implementation of it. And as it goes down, 18 is related to the PII and the other part of it. Now, even before ISO 27701 came into place, 27000 did exist. In fact, it started off even much prior to 2000 when it was called BS 17799. This BS 17799 migrated to 27001. Now, the 27001 is an information security management system. So along with its controls, it did have a few domains. Those domains were primarily related to information security. Now, the very fact that today your personal data is in digital form, the applicability of 27000 does exist for privacy. Now, that is an important link which you see. If your data was not lying in digital form, or was in no hardware, or was not bound by software, then your 27701 was not existence at all. So because your data is an information security management system, the 27701 came in. Now, if you refer to the annexure E, that is the last annexure of F of 27701, it talks about how to apply 27001 and 27001 and 2 to become a privacy compliant organization. So the reference of 27001 in 27701 is in the annexure F, where it talks about how to apply. Many organizations may not require it, because if you are a mature organization with ISO 27001 and you're lived with ISO 27001 certification, then your 27701 comes in with a lot of smoothness and with a lot of applicability.
Right.
Yeah, that is it.
So I think summing it up, guys, all of you, is it's an extension of ISO 27001. ISO 27701 is an extension of ISO 27701, and it's a mandatory requirement of having a ISO 27001 before you can actually kind of certify for ISO 27701. Okay. Are there any questions? Any good questions that we see? Okay, so Kavya, you have a very good question that ISO is getting revised. Yes, ISO is getting revised. ISO 27001 is getting revised, and soon we will see a new version of it, and that is very true. Okay, moving back to the objective. So okay, implementation, right? Implementation. So now there was another question, sir. I think we kind of missed that question because we were waiting for this slide, obviously. So now, since we want on this slide, my question is, somebody asked how difficult it is, and you have experience, you have visibility, how difficult it is to implement a ISO 27701 standard. That is question number one. And question number two is, if it's difficult or if it's easy, how do we go about it, right? What does the organization do? Because a lot of people here are privacy professionals and are going to implement it in future for their companies. So how do they go about it, right? And what are the difficulties here?
Yeah. Okay. I'll put a little anomaly in place here, and I will draw. If you walk into any government office today, you will find a lot of files. And when I ask a professional to implement privacy in, let us say, in your Tehsildar office or in your registrar of births and deaths, when you go to registrar offices in a government office, you will find humongous amount of files all across line. Now, if I were to ask a privacy professional to implement privacy, let's say in a sub-registrar office, which is registering lands, you would not be able to do it. Yet, let us say you were to walk into an Airtel office, which has got a ERP in place, or which has got a supply chain management solution, SCM in place, and I say, okay, hey, please implement privacy here for me, you would be jumping into the fray very fast. Now, that is the distinction between what we saw. Now, the very fact that India went digitized very late in its transition, I feel today that we are in a position to implement 27,701 in maybe umpty number of organizations, in corporate as well as, say, in schools, or in terms of or in government organizations, much better than what we would say. For example, let us say I ask you to go to a school which is about 200 years old. Your copy of your TC or your birth certificate is in manual form. Now I ask you to implement privacy certification there. You would be wondering how to now scan this whole thing, legacy data, and make it into a privacy compliant organization. But if you go into, let's say, an international school in Gurgaon today, you would see that they only accept digital form of documents. Hence, implementing solutions under ISO 27000 or complying that international school into 27001 would be an easy journey for a privacy professional. Yet, this is not to bog down any privacy professional in the fray today. Yet, there are challenges in implementation of 27001 in a legacy organization that has its legacy on paper. Yet, that is why I said, because you're an ISMS organization, 27001 organization, it is much easier to implement ISO 27001 as a journey.
Right. I think probably I would have to summarize it again for everybody. And I think probably summary would actually help here. And also I want to put a perspective here as well in the journey of this discussion. So in case of legacy organizations, it becomes very difficult because obviously we are still not digitized. But in all the digital organizations, the ISO journey becomes a bit easier compared to others, right? Howsoever, just wanted to add on a few points saying in terms of implementation, right? When we go about that PIMS, so what Sir has also said is implementing there are two things, right? Taking a certification and implementation, right? The moment we're trying to increase our privacy stature, decrease the privacy risk in an organization, we automatically have to put up PIMS, right? Above our ISMS. And obviously, if you're going that way, if you're going another way, then it's another life. But if you have ISMS and we are building a PIMS above it, then it automatically makes sense for everyone to kind of get there and attack that attack that vector and then kind of solve that problem. Yeah. So we'll move on to our next question. And I think this is a question, I think a lot of people who kind of come to our field, who come to privacy field are initially from information security field, right? And that is a trend, and I have seen that trend in India a lot, right? And in India, a lot of people who are in infosec, they kind of transition to privacy or they've added privacy to their portfolio, right? And that is something that I know a lot of Europeans and US and my counterparts there in privacy, but I don't see transition of infosec professionals to privacy as much as I see in India, being very honest. But in India, it's high. So I know people who are transitioning from an ISO 27001 to ISO 27701, right? So, sir, would you like to take that take that
Yeah.
moment and kind of
Yeah.
tell us like how do we
The
kind of build us up? Yeah.
Yeah. The most important aspect of an implementer or a sustainer of ISO 27001 is the model of PDCA, that is the plan, do, check, and act. So one would suggest that never to leave away the philosophy of PDCA. And as far as ISO 27001 is concerned, it is very apt and clear that the PDCA cycle does exist. That is, there is a planning, there is a, there is a do aspect, then there is whatever you have planned and whatever you're doing, you check or iterate or you verify it, and then again act. And this is a cycle that goes on and on. So there is no difference as far as a 27001 professional becoming a 27701 professional is concerned. It is a much easier journey. And since you understand the PDCA cycle in totality, it will be very, very easy for a person to migrate to become a privacy professional as a professional, and also for an organization if one is to its spirit implementing the PDCA cycle in its organization. And that is the reason why we have made this slide. It's a very important slide. I think, Akash, you can go to the next slide. Then it will give us a complete picture of how.
All right,
Now
sir.
you see, in the 27701, there is those green callouts which are there. That is actually getting superimposed into the PDCA cycle of the complete implementation oblique sustenance of 27701. Now remember the fact that today in India we don't have a certifying agency for 27701. We have to go to the BSI. But as far as 27001 is concerned, we have STQC, that is Standard for Testing and Quality Certification, part of Government of India, which will certify an organization for 27001. Now, I would like to draw your attention to those green callouts, which are specific to the PDCA cycle, where one has to superimpose, and then you are up and running with 27701. So it is not a tough journey. It is not a journey that is impossible, or it is not that something that you will not be able to implement as professionals. Keep the PDCA cycle in mind, and I know many of you are well versed and thorough with the PDCA in terms of implementation and in terms of sustenance. When an incident response, when a new process is in place, you do implement the PDCA cycle in your organization. Am I clear, Akash, or is that you require some
Yes,
more clarification?
I think no, no, sir. I think that's the most clear response on ISO, and I think probably it kind of comes also because of the implementation that you've already done in already that level of experience. And I think let's kind of talk about a bit more. But I have a question for you. I have a question for you, and it's a very important question that people have asked, sir. So the question number one is, my company is ISMS certified. So they are ISO 27001 certified and they are GDPR compliant as well. So how would an ISO 27701 certification would help them, sir? Like they're already
Okay.
doing everything.
Yeah.
They are right
Yeah.
on track. They're GDPR compliant. They're ISO
I,
27001. Then why ISO 27701?
okay. This is a beautiful question, and it's apt, absolutely. And I appreciate the person who asked this. And in fact, I was expecting somebody from the Indian perspective to ask me, if I'm certified in PDPB, or if I'm compliant to PDPB, why do I require a 27701? Now, in fact, when you do a GDPR implementation, it is on a business process that the compliance is required per se by the parent organization or by the dealing organization. Let's say, for example, Airtel was to have an office was to have a call center here in India for the UK clients or the European clients. So the organization need to be GDPR compliant. Yet, when it comes to certification of an organization, GDPR is not a certification. It's only a regulation for compliance. Yet ISO 27001 is a guidelines for implementation. Yet, hence, even when India comes up with the PDPP bill, it will become very difficult for the data protection organization that is going to come up to ensure the compliance of that organization to privacy. That time, they will insist on 27701. For example, today, if you have become a CERT empaneled information security auditor, the CERT India does check the organization, let us say AAA Enterprise. But when the CERT India comes in to check, it goes and says, please go and certify yourself ISO 27001 ISMS certified. Then we will come and empanel you for CERT India as an auditor. So similar will be the condition. So we cannot do away with the 27701 standard, irrespective of whether you are GDPR compliant or CPP compliant or Singapore Privacy Bill compliant or the Turkish compliance or whatever it is. In fact, if you see 27701 Annexure D, it refers to mapping of 27701 to GDPR. So probably when the PDPP Bill of India comes in, we will have Annexure E that would say how to map the PDPP Bill of India or PDPP Act of India to the 27701. So if you think that you can do away with 27701, please remove it from your mind. You have to be 27701 compliant.
Right. And I would actually kind of like to take this session to Q&A, and because I can see that people have great questions, and I think probably I'm gonna Akansha, are you there? Can you like spotlight me and sir, and then probably we can kind of take these questions. Can you spotlight me also? Yes, thank you. Otherwise, it will become difficult to answer. Okay, so I have another important question for you, and this is a technology question right now. And the question says, blockchain as a technology is considered high on security. Therefore, unless mandatory, how much would a compliance like ISO 27701 would help a blockchain company?
Okay, let me ask the person who asked me the question. How is Bitcoin surviving? It is not following 27701. Irrespective of the Bitcoin trading or the Bitcoin movement or the Bitcoin transactions that is happening across the world, it is without 27001. Have you ever checked up that the organization which is trading your currency is 27701 or not? Okay. Irrespective of that, the very fact that blockchain is a technology that is there for a particular purpose cannot be a what shall I say, a mandate within ISO 27701. Let us say an organization needs to follow blockchain. For example, the registration of land records in India. Now, if you see in about 5 years time from now, or from 2 years from now, you will be using a blockchain ID for registration of your flat, which will have a unique ID, and the transaction will be tracked like how we have the Bitcoin transaction being tracked. So, not to confuse between blockchain and ISO 27701. Blockchain is an enabler for probably privacy, if you ask me. It may not be an enabler for privacy too. So I would suggest that keep these two away till the time you know for what that blockchain is being utilized in your organization or in the organization where you are going to.
Right. I think it's more of a use and type of trust. I think because I would like to answer that question as well. This is a daily question that we are answering. So basically, see, a privacy certification gives assurance that you are, and a certification like ISO 27701 gives assurance to your global practices, right? So if you are a company who's kind of going across the globe, not just in India, and want to showcase that you know something about privacy, that is the first step that you take to kind of do global business, because most of the businesses in India are actually doing export, right? When we're talking about IT, blockchain, right? Selling in the US, selling in Europe, and privacy kind of helps a lot there. A certification like ISO 277 helps a lot with that. Okay, question number two. Question number two is a very basic question, which is, and I'll take this. So if you're a starter in this field and you have not worked on ISO 27001, you will have to study a bit about ISO 27001. You have to know ISMS so that you can build PIMS over it, right? And that has to happen. So it won't happen that you can just do PIMS, because in our context, obviously, when we are building PIMS, it's built upon ISMS, right? So we'll leave it there. Guys, any questions that you have, drop it in the question box. Anything that you want to know about ISO 27701, this is a raw one-to-one discussion that we are having. Anything that comes to your mind is a good question. Drop it, don't think twice, and we will take it up and answer. Going on to the next question. From ISO, so this question is for you. From ISO 27701, outsourced activities, due diligence of vendor contracts. Can you provide clarity as to what needs to be done by a privacy? What a great question. So, what needs to be done by a privacy professional? I think that's a great question as to karna kya chahiye. Yeah.
It's a Akash, it's a very long question. Can you split it up or can you
So,
repeat the question again?
so the question is in terms of diligence of vendor contracts. Yeah. So like for vendors, the question is for vendors and ISO 27. So when you're complying with ISO 27701, what is the implication of that on the vendors that we have? Right? What do we do in the contracts? Right? What is it that we take care of? Not about the organization itself, but the processor basically.
Yeah. See, uh, the ISO 27701 distinguish between the data controller and the data processor. Now, the data controller is the one who holds the data, and the data controller is the one to whom you would be probably sharing data. The processor is the one to whom you may be sharing that data for certain processing for that matter. Like, for example, you plan to have a survey, or you want to, let us say, give that data to make a management information system report, or so and so.
Yeah, I think we're good with the session, right? We're good with the session. And I know it was a great session for all of you, right? Where I know everybody has taken something from this session. Uh, and that kind of gives us more confidence and assurance that our sessions are helping you out. Howsoever, we have a few more sessions for you. This is a upcoming session that we have with IAPP, and this is a session that we're doing with Privido. So there are two sessions that are back to back. So Kansha, let sir in once he's available. So you can kind of join in here. And also, I would like to open the bridge for all of you to, you can kind of drop your LinkedIn's here, and we can kind of connect with each other. If you would like to do a professional introduction with each other in the chat. So everybody is allowed to kind of, I'm opening the session for everyone to kind of drop their LinkedIn's, and I've dropped Binod sir's LinkedIn over there on the top. So you all can connect with Mr. Binod, right? And if there are any questions that we can take for you on LinkedIn, and if you have taken something from this session, my request to you is to drop a good note about us, right? And that kind of helped you out, right, on LinkedIn as well. And this gives us more confidence over time to kind of do more sessions. Sir, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Am I
Okay.
audible now?
Yes, sir, you're audible now.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, you're audible now. Sir, I'm really sorry. In the
Sorry.
last 1 minute, actually, because of the internet, the voice was not coming clearly. So people
Yeah.
kind of. So, sir, in the end,
Apology.
I want to thank you first of all for taking your valuable time out for all of us. And it's a pleasure to kind of see your experience, your knowledge, your degrees, right, and your implementation knowledge to be shared on this platform of Tsaaro, right? And we are very thankful to you, and we want to see more of you in coming time.
I know this is a very short session to our audience, and mind you, I'm also a student, still yet to be certified on privacy, but I have been into many of these businesses for very long, and I feel that I will encourage each one of you to keep in touch with privacy, because when the bill comes in, there will be a huge influx. If you remember, there was a time when the schools were mandated to have counselors. So all those psychology professionals who were sitting at home suddenly found a huge influx of jobs across the complete continent of India. So similar will be the status of privacy professionals. So equip yourself, be prepared, keep reading, follow the PDPB bill, because remember, the whole world is watching us as to how we are going to implement the privacy, because we are the largest democracy in the world. And if you look at Canada, US, Europe put together is the population of 1.3 billion people waiting to be implemented with provisions of privacy as part of the bill. And that is why even the parliament is taking so much of time to bring out a foolproof and that which will not be challenged in the Supreme Court. So keep preparing, keep studying, keep certifying yourself. And of course, academies like the Tsaaro have gone completely into the what shall I say, into the ocean of privacy and data protection. Utilize all their services, and you will be in a better place maybe in about 6 months from now, because the bill is here.
Thanks for saying that, sir. It's a very big deal for us to get your recommendation. But thanks a ton for joining the session, to helping everyone out, letting your experience out raw, right, without filters, and that is something that we would like more and more. And I know everybody around us wants to know more into the same topic. And I think we should definitely do a next session of this session into the technicalities of the controls. I think let's do that, sir. And thank you everyone for joining the session. And we will see you soon next week, and up to next week we have sessions upcoming, right? And we will see each other soon, guys. And have a nice day. And thank you, sir, for joining this session.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Akansha, you can end the session now.